Hi, I'm Rian, a Cyanotype artist, and let's do some experiments.
Now I'm just going to waste some more of your time going over all of the scans for each process that's happened. And if I kind of discuss what I experienced and what I found, hopefully it'll help you find the right paper for what you want to achieve. Um, I'm going to go over the papers again and the cost of them. The Platinum Rag was kind of like the ultimate paper for me. And it's the one that everyone's like, oh yeah, this is the best paper, this is amazing. And it is like, it's a really beautiful paper. You can tell as soon as you take it out of the packet that it's really good quality, that it's got a really, well, I think it's 100% cotton, isn't it? So it's just like, it is just a really beautiful feeling, like really robust paper. Do you need the jumper? Sorry, I just need to get the cat settled. I'm going to show you to the internet. Being a baby. Okay? Yeah? I wonder if I can hear the purring on the recording. Probably. Probably. Okay, where were we? We were talking about Platinum Rag. So, use that all? Okay, so I think I was saying that when I use this again, I'm going to do a step exposure so I can get the right time for the paper. I'm also going to start using a different chemistry to the Jacquard. So just in my experience from those Jacquard bottles, that are really easy. But I think I'm at a place now where I want to make sure that I get the best prints from my chemistry, and I don't think I'm getting that from Jacquard at the moment. Sorry, Jacquard, I do love you still. So I think if I was going to do this print again, I'd probably do it at like a 5 minute. But I'm not sure whether the sky would come in, because I was really happy on this paper that the sky turned out really lovely. And on a lot of the papers, the sky didn't turn out at all. Um, and there's a lot of lovely dark tones, but I'm not sure if it's quite got the I'm not sure it's quite got the mid tones that I would be looking for. Although this tree on the screen you can see has some tones within it. So I found it took ages to bleach. Apart from these, on some of the pictures, I think I either dripped some bleach on and didn't wash it off properly, like by here and by here, um, or I touched them with my fingers and I hadn't washed them properly, or so yeah. So if I'm going to bleach to tone, I never take it back to the yellow because I don't think it ever gives really good results, to be honest. I like to have some of these darker tones so it creates a bit more of it's almost like a duotone print. It looks more photographic to me. Anyway, this took ages to bleach. It's a really hardy paper, and you can see the sky disappeared. This tree, I think, turned out quite nice actually. Um, the dog looks quite blown out, and I quite like these trees in the background. I think bleaching did pick up a bit more of the detail. It just took ages to pick up the tone, and I think actually this ended up being a really lovely colour. You can see the sky ended up picking up some of that matcha tea, and you can see some of the sky back in. It's a shame that that's not more blue, but that's just me trying to achieve the impossible from the process. It's just what I would like from the process. Um, but I think the tree turned out lovely. And these trees, the dog had a bit more tone put back in, and the leaves I think look quite realistic. It looks very much like an oldie photo, but it took quite a long time in the matcha tea bath to pick up this colour, and I would have expected, based on other watercolour papers, I know it's not a watercolour paper, but based on other papers I've used, I would have expected this to have picked up more tone, to be honest. Yeah, so I'm just don't want to be pronouncing all of these. I do know that Baohong is a really well-known paper maker, and so I initially found these on Timu when I'm always going through a bit of a Timu phase, to be honest, and I go in and out of Timu phases anyway. When I first started using Timu about a year ago and was like, oh, I know that, Chinese and Japanese papers for watercolor and inks and things are really good. And so that's why I was like, oh, when I was on Timu, I was like, I'm going to look for papers and the Baohong stuff is everywhere, and it's not cheap. So I think this one was I had to say there, 16.95, and that's for 20 sheets. And then this was a square version. You can see 10 by 2 by 10 by 2 inches, which is kind of, it's wider than a portrait A4, but it's not as tall as a portrait A4, if that makes sense. So I would consider this bigger than an A4. Yeah, and so at this price, because the prices change a lot on Temu as well, and sometimes you can get stuff really cheap, or they'll give you something free. But based on the price that I paid, which I think was this, these 81p per sheet. And some of them, well, this one particularly is quite a textured paper, which I don't love for images. But if we go on a bit, we'll have a look. God, this video is going to take me ages. I'm so sorry. This is going to be waffling on. So I was actually really happy with this. I thought the dog had loads of detail. I thought the leaves had like depth to them. This fine detail in the back of these trees I thought was lovely. The tone in this big tree at the front I thought was lovely, and also picked up loads of the sky. And so I think for the price of the paper, I thought this is okay. I thought this was quite a good, you know, if you were interested in these papers, then I would, if I had more money, I would buy all of them. And I have actually invested in a massive 10-meter roll of paper similar to this, not quite as grainy, for me to do some really big prints, which I'm not sure I'm going to manage. But yeah, they've got these massive 10-meter rolls as well, which I think is like really fantastic, because I do think these papers are absolutely brilliant for Cyanotype. I really do recommend using them. But don't buy them thinking that they are a cheap option. Because I don't think they are. I think they're on a par with Dela and things like that. So anyway, so yeah, I probably would again expose this for maybe 6 minutes instead of 8. Or, you know, if I was to follow my own advice, would do step exposure, but obviously I'm not. So come on. Yeah, so the bleaching on this one, look at my little spots. Oh dear. It responded really well to the bleach. And you can see just the fine detail that gets sort of, I don't know, like when you bleach it a bit, and you get that finer detail in. Oh, I just love that so much. It's crazy how the Cyanotype works, and then how when you sort of like take off that top layer, like what is underneath is crazy. Anyway, I think the tree turned out really lovely. There's still quite a lot of dark in the branches and the trunk, and then just, yeah, these trees over here I think just look so lovely. And then if we compare that to the to the hand mule, actually, the platinum rag, there's that one in it. Yeah, it just looks so focused on there. Whereas we go back to this one, and it just seems to have like a lot more of the finer detail still in that print. It's mad. Okay, and then toned. My one thing that I'm not a big fan of with the Baohong papers is they stain. And not all papers stain. And I know you think that that's kind of what toning is doing, is staining. And I suppose it is, I don't know. But when the paper stains, I'm not a big fan. But as you can see, it didn't really latch onto these tiny like mess up bits that were really yellow. And it's really, you know, when you're toning, it's those bits that really should be picking up the colour, and they didn't. Whereas like the sky and everything else. And if you want to check if a toner you're using is actually staining, just like turn the sheet over. And then if the back of it has lost a lot of its colour, its colour it should have, and is, you know, stained, then yeah. So but again, I think it's quite a nice photo though still. But for me to want to use this paper as a staple, it would need to have done a bit better than this. Firm favourite for me is the Strathmore Bristol paper. It's really smooth. It's really hardy. It stands up to, for quite a fine paper, it stands up to a lot of water. It stands up to a lot of moisture. You can quite comfortably, do a tricolour cyanotype with this if you wanted. So, and I think it does give you quite a lot of detail. The Strathmore Bristol is on Amazon £16.75. You can get a bit cheaper on Amazon if you sign up to regular deliveries of it, which is what I do. And also, as you can see, this one that I buy is 11 by 14 inches, and it's just like maybe a couple of centimeters both ways bigger than an A4. So I quite like it, so I can position in an A4 negative, an A4 picture, and I have a border around the outside. And so if you're going to frame a picture or whatever you want to do, I just find that a bit better. Or if you use clips like I do, to clip everything together in its frame with its bit of glass when you're processing it, when you're exposing it, you've got the clip marks in those little outside areas, if it overlaps, so it doesn't overlap the image. So the image, I do like the papers to be a bit bigger than the negative, so you've got that sort of that bleed or that leeway to have some issues. Anyway, 1675, and that's for, where's my information? The third one, 1675 for 20 sheets, so that's 84p per sheet. And so yeah, I waste a lot of this unfortunately, just trying things out. So let's look at the image. Okay, so yeah, I'm quite happy with this as is. Again, I think it's just a tiny bit overexposed, maybe needs a minute or two less. And also, that could be my chemistry. So we'll find out when I use my new chemistry anyway, whether that's that problem. So I'm quite happy it's got some of the sky, not loads of the sky, but it's kind of enough to give the image some depth. The dog's got loads of details, maybe a bit dark in there. It's just a tiny bit dark, maybe a tiny bit overexposed. But I do like how the Strathmore does respond to bleaching. So if we go to the bleach, I think I over bleached this a little bit. It's really difficult to know. For me, it depends how you like to bleach. If you like to bleach to yellow, then you're fine, aren't you? You just like bleach it until you can't see it anymore and then it's all done. But for me, I would have liked it a tiny bit darker, but I am super happy with the fine detail in the trees in the background. I don't want the volume up. I was going to try and zoom in, but I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, so yeah, really happy with the leaves. You can see some of the detail in my dog's fur. These leaves up here, you can see some separation in them. I think it just gives you, because of the smooth nature of the paper, it's always going to give you a really clean print if that's what you want. And then if we go on, try to find, yeah, so actually I really love this. I think this looks just really photographic. I think the toning put more detail in the sky than is in the original. If we try and go back, yeah, so all the sky detail gone when it's bleached. And then, I mean, this is what real toning should do, is all those bits that you can't see, but the chemistry is still there on the paper. And so the tone, when you tone something, it should pick up the chemistry that's there that you couldn't see before. And so it just, you can see the depth in the sky, and I think that's really great. I really love here, it just, it just looks like it's got like a range of colour almost. And this is just from, cyanotype and then the bleaching of the matcha tea. And why I like matcha tea so much as well is it kind of, once you get your bleaching at the right level. It gives really lovely grey tones, so it does look really photographic. I don't think this looks like a Cyanotype print particularly. I think this looks like a nice photograph, and that's what I look for. So Strathmore, always a fan. Okay, I really like the Langton as well. And I know here at the moment it's 12.85, reduced on 14.70. I don't know how often it's 14.70. I've only bought one pad of this before, and it was like a random purchase from a little trip into Trago Mills in Merthyr Tydfil, which, if you're in South Wales, Trago Mills is just like mind-blowingly amazing as a store. If the zombie apocalypse is coming, like, go to Trago Mills, like, absolutely seriously. It's got guns, it's got vehicles, it's got art supplies, it's got records, it's got all the clothes you could need, fishing equipment. Anyway, so, but the art department is actually really good, and really I've picked up some of my favourite materials there just to try them because they were cheaper, and I think they're amazing. So anyway, so I'd pick this up for about £8 at Trago Mills. And so if you're paying 12, what was it? I'm going to go on the dearer price at 14.70. And so if you were paying that, so this is, I think it's A4. It might be slightly smaller than A4, but I think it's A4. And so at 14.70 for 12 sheets is all you get with this. Is £1.22 per sheet per print, but for a textured watercolor, it gives a really good print. I think better than the Daler Rowney one that I use. That will come up in a bit. Okay, so the main print, I think, you've got some sky. You've got some tones in here, loads of detail, way more detail, I think, than in the other ones. In the back, we go back and have a look. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, a little bit of detail there. We go. See, that just looks really, oh, sorry. I mean, that just looks really, not blurry, but it's just not defined on the platinum rag. So, and then the Baohong's all right. It's a bit dark. There we go. That wasn't too bad with the Bristol, but this absolutely did come out the best, I think, with the trees in the background. Lots of detail in the fur on the dog. The leaves are looking lovely. There's depth in the leaves. Yeah, super happy with that. I think I'm going to get some more of this. And this was the last piece actually from the pad that I got originally. So either my partner would be super happy we're going back to Trago Mills, because I would rather pay £8 than nearly 15. That's nearly half price. Anyway, I thought it bleached lovely. Maybe took this back a little bit too far. Again, little yellow spots. Honestly, it was such a chaotic day when I was bleaching, obviously. So yeah, like, look at the tree, like, the tones in the tree, really lovely. And then these in the background, again, these lovely trees. They just look so delicate and amazing. And I think that's really beautiful. Again, it's a watercolor paper, so it's really great for toning and doing multiple processes on one sheet. So if you want to do a duotone or a tricolour, perfect. And I think it toned to just this really lovely colour. I mean, it does almost look green, which is fantastic. And yeah, I really, this is one of my favourites. It might not be other people's favourites, but it's one of my favourites. And again, you can see it picked up some more detail in the sky, not as much detail as other papers, which is a shame, but I think the dog looks the best. I think that looks really photographic of her. So, okay, let's go on to... this is the paper. Yeah, so this is probably like my staple paper that I use, just because it comes in really big blocks. And And so this one at 15.44 is about what I usually pay. So that's why I've gone on that price and not that £21 price. Although I'm not saying that it won't, when you go to buy it, it won't be the £21. So yeah, I usually pay around £15, and this is a 50 sheets, so that is a bargain. So 15.44, it's A4, and so that works out at 31p a sheet. And so that is just for the quality of the paper. Let's go on a bit. For the quality of the paper, and it withstands loads and loads of washing. Easily do tricolours on this. I've done so many tricolours on this paper. I mean, it's not the best initial print, but it's certainly somewhere in the middle. It's a shame more of the sky didn't show up. But it's a really lovely bright colour. So if I try and show that with some of the others, that's quite bright too. That's probably the brightest, I would say. Not so bright. I don't even know what I would call that. Definitely has a different tone, like this light tone does pick up on this, that it hasn't on any of the others, I think. So maybe that is worth using the platinum rag for. Oh God. Now I'm going over all this and I'm changing my mind on things. Anyway, bleach is really lovely. It's not super sensitive to bleach, but it's not too hardy. So I find I can get quite a good level of sort of contrast that I look for after I bleach in this one. And then if we look at, there we go. So yeah, so I think this is lovely. I think it's got like a much, finding my words, it's given detail in the sky now, and I think it's just got this really lovely sort of, I don't know what you call it, this kind of greeny grey sort of colour now to it, which I think is really lovely for the leaves and for the detail in the fur on the dog. I think it gives a really good print, so definitely, you know, really great value for money. Should I work out what the £21 is? So this comes in sheet blocks of 50, not 50. I buy in blocks of 50. Comes in blocks of 20 as well, which would make it more expensive. So if you want a good sort of wad of paper to just kind of experiment with and burn through, I definitely recommend this Rowney watercolour. What was it? £21.50 divided by 50. Yeah, so even at full price, it's only 43p per sheet. I'm going to write that down. Oh, we're only on number 5 out of 13. I'm so sorry. We'll see. 43. So yeah, that's really, really cheap. Really affordable. Okay, let's crack on. So this is one of the smaller ones. As you can see, it says it's 4 by 9 inches, which I feel like is even smaller than that, to be honest with you. But anyway, I preferred this one over the green Baohong. I don't know what the difference is between them. They do loads. They do a lot of cold press, textured and hot press. And I think the hot press are probably the smoother ones. And I'm not sure what all of these are, because when you get them, the information generally is not in English. The information you want is not really in English. So anyway, and then if you're used to Temu, it's kind of like, what information does it give you? Just really random information. I know when I've looked at papers on Temu recently, and they're all giving you like, it's like 36k, and I presume that's like 36 kilo, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means in terms of like actual what the paper is like. Like I understand what GSM is. I know if I'm getting, you know, over 200 GSM, I'm getting a pretty good quality paper. If I'm getting under 200 GSM, it's probably not going to work for what I want it to work for. Anyway, so if anyone knows what the K means, like, please let me know. I could Google it. I'm not going to Google it now. I'm not going to waste your time more. So anyway, so this pad, I paid £6.97. I know I've checked. At the moment, it's £9.68 for a block, and that's for 20, and that makes it 48p per sheet. But like I said, these are small, so if you want a kind of like traditional photo sized print, these are fantastic. When you want something a bit more A4, you're looking at around £17 for a book of this at the moment. And it was something it's something I might buy, but I'm not sure I want to pay that much for bigger sheets of this paper. Anyway, let's have a look at what went on. So kind of like the platinum rag, I think it looks not focused enough. The image looks bigger because obviously I've scanned it, but it's probably like if this was an A4 sheet, the image, if you can see my mouse, the image would probably be like this here, like this kind of size. So yeah, so you can see there's not much, you can't see the branches so much because of the way that I cropped the image. Well, not cropped the image, laid out the paper under the negatives anyway. But yeah, it's just not quite got the detail in the leaves, and the dog looks a bit dark, and so like, I'm a bit like about it. I'm not sure, which is why I'm not sure about spending money on bigger blocks of this. I think it did bleach really nicely. It bleached quite quickly, which I think probably means that the paper is quite porous. That could be nonsense though. That's just my brain working that out, but it's probably wrong. But the trees in the background turned out lovely. This still doesn't have enough detail for me in this big tree. And the leaves and the dog turned out a bit better. So, but I think I remember, if we get to the toned image, this stained the worst out of all of them. And I mean, it looks quite nice with the sky, and I quite like the tone of the cyanotype underneath on this paper, but probably because if it is a really porous paper, that's why it's stained. Just saying. And like you can see, it's got these extra dark bits here, which I think was just laid on top of because the matcha is still, it doesn't dissolve really, it's still got grains, and so I think it just settled on a few grains of the matcha. So yeah, so I probably wouldn't bother buying this paper again. Now this one, I don't know why this was different, and I'd got this little green one by here, and I don't know why it was different. Maybe because it's cold press, I don't know, but I'm sure the others were cold press, 'cause I do tend to buy cold press over hot press. I'm not sure why. I find them smoother, but I think hot press is supposed to be smoother, but I'm not sure. I'm not like I like papers. I don't know much about paper. Anyway, so this as well is quite a small one, and so I would say that it's probably, I'll show you when we look at the picture. So I don't think it says anywhere, does it? See, this here, this £140 or 300 GSM, I presume when it says it's a K, that's a kilo, so that's a kilo version of this. But again, I don't understand what it means at all. I don't understand why they can't just put GSM. Anyway, so this, when I went to look, this was out of stock, but the price that I paid for it was quite expensive, £9.48 for 20 sheets. Now, seen as they're small sheets, that's quite expensive, and I think when I've looked at this again recently, this was nearer to £20 for a pack of A4, which is quite a lot. You know, if you're more expensive than the Strathmore, way more expensive than the De La Rowney Aquacolor, it's, yeah, I'm just not sure, but I did like this one. Anyway, so yeah, so at £9.68, that's 48p per sheet, which is reasonable. That's fine, you know, that's cheap. But for a smaller print, maybe it's not so good value for money. So as you can see, this one about the same size as the last one, maybe slightly bigger. As you can see more of the tree. So this one I think is more of like this kind of size on an A4, more like, yeah, just a bit bigger. So anyway, showed loads of the sky, really lovely detail in the trees, and then you can see detail in here, but obviously where it would be a bit more toned, it's cut off. I think the dog looks really lovely. I think she's got quite a picturesque look about her. This seems really similar actually to the platinum rag. So if we go back to that one, sorry. So yeah, so that's the platinum rag, and I think it's got that really similar like lighter blue tone to this. Are we on the right one? There we go, we're on this one, aren't we? Yeah, it's got a really similar sort of vibe to it. I wonder if it does say how big it was. Oh, it just doesn't at all, does it? You can't see it. Anyway, this being it's a bit smaller than the platinum rag, but not a lot smaller, and it is literally a third of the price. So I think if you were looking for this kind of thing, I would go for this over the platinum rag. Anyway, let's see what happened when we bleached it. It bleached really quickly, this one, and I didn't know something was happening with my bleach at the time, but anyway, it bleached really quickly, and so the dog looks a bit washed out. The trees in the background, I quite like them, but you can see all the detail that's come up in this now. You can see where the branches are and stuff. If we go back, try and look at this one. Yeah, it's just shown up like so much more detail, which is what I like to get from the bleaching. So toned, again, it's rested on some bits there, unfortunately, and did stain. The toning, I don't know what happened, but it's almost lost more detail again. I don't understand why that is. I just got this bit by here. I think this is a thing actually with the Baohong and the Chinese papers, is they are really absorbent. You want that to a certain extent with Cyanotype, but you don't really want it. It's a shame it doesn't have more detail in the sky. So maybe I wouldn't go for this over the platinum. Oh dear, there's so many to consider. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is another product that I actually picked up for about £12 in Trago Mills. And I didn't know you could get artboard in watercolour, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And it was when I just started doing tricolour, and this is amazing for tricolour. And the reason it's amazing for tricolour is it doesn't shrink, or if it does shrink, it doesn't cause any problems. Because when you do tricolour or whatever, you do a multi-part process, and you don't shrink the paper first, which is a mistake I've made many times. Or if you're doing it on fabric and you want to do more than one process, which is a really beautiful outcome. But if you don't shrink your material beforehand, it's impossible to then create the right size negatives to go on top of each other. And it's always going to look a bit trippy if you don't shrink the paper first. And so I think that's always something to consider with multi-process prints, where you're using multiple negatives, is there's an extra level, there's an extra wetting process. So does your paper withstand the initial shrinkage, then the cyanotype, then the bleach, then the tone, then the cyanotype, then the bleach, then the tone. So that's 7 times that it's getting processed and like it's getting washed. And so that's a lot to consider when you're doing duotone and tricolour cyanotypes. Anyway, so I discovered this. I thought that was quite cheap. You only get 10 boards per block. And it also comes in A3, which is fantastic as well. And not that much more expensive. I think it's about £18 for a block of 10 A3. So I love this. It does, if you're doing it quite a lot of, you know, if you're doing like a duotone or a tricolour, it does start to peel apart a little bit. But if you put it in a frame or whatever, like, it doesn't matter. So anyway, I love this. So £14, that's £1.40 per board. But that's really lovely quality. And also, I think because of it's glued to the board, it's a lot smoother than the paper version of this that I have already waxed lyrical about. Anyway, if I'm doing something serious, I will use the board over the paper. The paper I just like to use as it's good for trialing stuff. So on this, you've got like really lovely detail in the dog, really lovely tone and detail in the tree. You've got some delicate tones here, and you've got some sky. And I'm like, what more could you want? And then let's go back actually and look at, which one was it? This one. So if we look at this, it's not much different, but it's just a tiny bit better. And I think that is because it's that little bit smoother of a finish. So yeah, I'll always use these boards. Oh, look at that yellow blob right in the middle of that tree. So yeah, this bleaches not too quickly, but not slow either. So you've got to keep an eye on it if you only want to take it down a level or two. But I love the detail that's brought out in this tree here. You've got some leaf separation. These trees over here have got more delicate. Sky is gone, whatever. So yeah. So toning, like, you really have no issues with any of this on toning. So look all the lovely layers of sky that has come in now. Oh, that yellow blob. I love the colour on this. It looks proper sepia toned to me. It looks proper like grey and brown. Love it. Maybe a bit greeny. Absolutely not Cyanotype. It could be a bit clearer around the dog, but I think that's probably just where I bleached it a bit unevenly. But yeah, I love the colour of this bit up by here as well. So big fan of this. You know, if this is what you want to achieve, go for it. Okay, right. So the next 2 papers I had bought really cheap, actually. A local art shop was closing down. Really sad. They were amazing and just so knowledgeable. And when I learnt Cyanotype from the tech dem at uni, he was like, use cartridge paper. Cartridge paper is the best. And then I would use cartridge paper and didn't get on with it at all. And he was like, never use watercolour paper. And I'm like, watercolour paper is the best. I wish he'd told me about the Bristol Strathmore. So the next 2 papers I got reduced by at least half price, and I wouldn't have bought them otherwise. I also bought this one in A3 as well, and they are thin. I mean, you can see this one is 150 GSM and the next one is 130, and I think they give you a really good result because they are fine and they are smooth. And so actually, I'll tell you price. So on Amazon at the moment, £9.89 for, I think it's 20 sheets. Here we go, number 9. £9.89 for 25 sheets. That's 40p a sheet. So, you know, fine. No issues on price there. And the image, lovely trees, lovely detail, a bit I don't know, how would I put this? A bit contrasty maybe. Not a lot of midtones, not really any sky. There are some midtones in this tree. And I wonder if it needed a bit more exposure, but I feel like that would just have made it a bit more contrasty. Anyway, they're really delicate, so you've got to be really careful. This one, obviously, because it's that little higher GSM, isn't as bad, but absolutely, it's fine if you're going to do one print anymore, and I think it's a no. So it bleached. This was almost an immediate, like, bleaching. So it didn't hold up to the bleach very well at all. So I wouldn't recommend bleaching it. Maybe unless you want to take it to yellow. I don't know. And then I think kind of responded well to the toning. I mean, this tree looks lovely. This tree looks lovely. The dog looks lovely. I don't know what is going on with the sky. And you can see here, by the time that I'd bleached it and then toned it, it started to crease when I was... Then the other one was this Dalo Smooth cartridge. These are both A4. And I get 30 on this one. So have I not included the price? Sorry, I keep thinking it's going to zoom in and out, and it doesn't. So the price on this one is £8.30 for 30 sheets. And so that's only 28p per sheet. But this one fared worse, I think. I mean, this is kind of more what all the other prints have been like, and has some sky in it compared to the 150 GSM. I think the leaves look really nice actually in this one. And the dog looks okay. I don't think it looks as contrasty, but it's still a little bit contrasty. So if we look at the bleach, I was more wary on this one with the bleach and just kind of dunked it in and took it back out again. And it kind of gave me the level that I like of bleaching, where I think it will give me some really nice darker tones when it's toned. And so the picture, it looks really lovely. It's got some sky in it now. The dog, I think, looks really realistic. I think that looks really similar to photos of her rather than a Cyanotype print. You get what I mean. And then the tree looks really lovely. I mean, this looks proper brown. Do you know what I mean? It's that lovely sort of sepia looking tone. But at this point, there's not much integrity left in this paper, as much as the picture looks really good. So, yeah, that's just that. I don't really recommend using these. They're really lovely papers, maybe not for Cyanotype. Anyway, this one is one that I'm a big fan of. And I think people do know this Giorgione brand to be quite good. I'd had this little A5, so this, there's no price on there. Yeah, I'd be really tempted to buy the A4 and the A3 of this. So for this, I paid... Look at my book. We're nearly done. For the A5, so like a little postcard size, I only paid £4.94 for 30 sheets, and so that's only 16p, but it's little. But I mean, that should make the bigger ones a bit better. And then this is also the brand of the paintbrushes I like to use for my Cyanotype application. Yeah. So I think this is better than the Platinum Rag, for sure. If I go back all the way back to the Platinum Rag. There's things in the Platinum Rag that the other papers do not do at all, and I've only seen in the Platinum Rag, like the brighter blue tones. I like the band as well. Oh, I've lost my place. There we are. And you can see the texture in this quite clearly in the paper, which is kind of a shame, but I think, you know, it doesn't have that bright blue that the platinum rag has, but you can see the tone in this tree is detailed. The dog is looking pretty good already. And then because it's a watercolor paper, it stands up to quite a lot of nonsense. I think it bleached really evenly. This is a thumb mark over here. But it bleached really evenly, and I like that. Whereas with some papers, you've got to really make sure they're really flat on the bleach so they bleach evenly. But this didn't really need that much attention. And so now you can see these really fine branches here. Yeah, it's all looking good. And obviously, oh, too far. The paper did stain a little bit, but not as much as others. And I think it also toned really evenly. So like where you've got this bit over here where I put my thumb, in other papers wouldn't have taken as well. But now I think that the tree looks really lovely. The dog looks really well toned. And I think everything's got a bit of depth. So fan of that one. Right. Okay, so generally in the past, I've tried photo paper, and I think because it is so smooth, it gives such a good print that you don't get from other papers, but you can barely wash it. So doing all of the processes I've done for this test, it hasn't stood up to much. And is also really cheap. So this one that I just got off of, I get a lot of this PPD stuff. They're acetate for negative, for digital negatives is my preferred. It's not my favorite, but for cost per negative, it's my preferred. And so, yeah. So this is a cheap photo paper. Yeah. So £12.59 per 100 sheets, sometimes £13.99, but I'm pretty sure I'd get it for about the £12 mark. So that is obviously like under 13p per sheet. But it's flipping useless, honestly. So first off, this was the 8-minute exposure, and it's obviously not exposed enough. So it bleaches pretty instant. As soon as you put it in, this is pretty much what you get. It was a bit darker, but you always lose a bit whilst you're washing it because it's still bleaching. Anyway, this is what we got when we toned it. So it picked up nothing. You've got a little bit of the border, and also the I don't know if it's resin coating or whatever on it. It just started to bubble and crease, and yeah. So that's that image. So then I did a 12-minute exposure, and I think this picture actually is really lovely. If you left it at this, it's got tone in the tree, loads of lovely detail in the background. I love in this one as well how you can see the light is just here as well. Yeah, really lovely. I think it could probably, I'd be interested in a 20-minute, like an 18 or a 20-minute exposure. But yeah, so bleaching for this one, I was really careful. So literally just like dunked it for half a second. And then toning, just literally wiped it all out, and you get bubbling and everything else. So that's that. So maybe you can bleach it a little bit, I don't know. But if you want some clear pictures, I'm not being funny. Oops, find a good one. Overexpose it, and you do get a good picture, and just be careful in the water. So the last one is probably another one of my favorites, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it. I think it's potentinatus. I don't know. Anyway, this one is also smaller than A4. It's a bit bigger than an A5, so it's probably like a large photo. And also is really cheap. So this is still about what it is now, I think, £4.16. So that's only, it's for 10 sheets that come in a little packet. And so that's only 42p a sheet, but it is small. And I think this is one of my favourite exposures of the dog, to be honest. You've got a bit of sky coming in. There's a little bit of tone in this tree, and there's a lot of lovely, delicate detail in the background. So this is one of my favourites as well. It's fine. Again, bleached really evenly. I think I would probably opt for this one over the platinum rag as well. Yeah, and has one of the best tones. It did stain the paper a little bit, but nothing that doesn't detract from the image. So quite often when you get staining, it kind of stains over the detail you've got left of your image. So all the detail that you had from the Cyanotype print gets kind of coloured over, and so you lose a lot of the detail that you just got back from bleaching it. So yeah, so I think it's left with a lovely grey colour. Again, looks really photographic. Super happy. Ta-da!